Alrighty, so for week 13, which I'm recording earlier, not a big surprise, what we're going to do is we're learning the last two major concepts for this class. And one is the idea of advanced objects and functions, what we really might term OOP, object oriented programming. And because for this week you've covered half of this section, I think there's enough here for you to take on what I'm going to have you do for the Learn Together. What I will say, and I'm going to show you both this week and next, as far as the Learn Togethers, because they'll be related. What you'll do for this week, then you'll take and you'll add functionality. Because basically, what we're doing is we're learning how to create objects, substantiated objects. These are different than object literals that we've been working with in the past. So we start by learning the constructor function. And then after we finish next week, then we learn how to use the class. And really, class is the typical way for standard programming languages. You create a class, and then you create objects based on that class. I always think sometimes of it as a blueprint, but so that's the process you're going to be going through in the in the code along. And then in the Learn Together, because, well, let me say this. What Andrew does here is he builds a game. And I think this is a good way to showcase one example of how to use OOP in programming. But I would tell you that, try not to be limited to this either, because OOP is used in all kinds of coding database, of course, many different applications. So what I thought we'd do is actually for this week, I want you to, given what we've learned, right, is to write code that processes an order. Now you get to decide what kind of order, what kind of products. But the key is because most orders, like you can think of an online order, you can think of when you go to the grocery store, but most of them are multiple item. So think about how you would do that. And then output a message to the browser when the user clicks a button. So we know how to do user clicks a button. The part we're learning is how to set up a class and then how to call objects, right? So to get full points for this, you have to have a running total and the order detail. So I'm going to show you for this verse one, my output, but I just wanted to tell you that, your approach to this should be different. But I'm just showing you how, and I'm not going to show you my code. Matter of fact, I may not even push my code this time because I really want you all to come up with your own way of handling this. But for week 13, for this week, you don't actually have to write the form that does the order. Okay, you can, because by the way, next week we will. Okay, and then we will change from the constructor function, which we're using to substantiate objects this week, and we'll use the class next week, and we'll add the form. So what I did is I just created a simple button. Again, my CSS really wanted to take over. My CSS, diva wanted to do this, but I decided, no, I'm going to keep it simple. So on my event listener, I select, and I'll just tell you, I won't show you the code, but I'll tell you what I did is I basically selected a random customer based on an array, a random item, a random price, and I basically did an order and an entree. And then I calculated the total for that item. So in this case, the multiple items are the drink for me and the salad. Okay. Again, you could do this however, you just need to be able to handle multiple orders so that you can do the total. Now, one hint I will give you is that I did the total outside of the class. Or the constructor function. I didn't do it inside of. I actually could have created a different class for that, but I decided just to keep it fairly simple so that if I do it again, then I get my next order up. And then my cells, you can see my cells are accumulating, right? So this is kind of your daily cells number. So anytime I do this, but the thing is, this is not persistent. And what we mean by that is if I hit refresh, I don't store this into local storage. I don't handle any of that. All I do is it clears it because it's in the computer's system. And so if I refresh the page, it clears it out. You don't have to handle what we saw in the our dev projects and what we saw for the sections that we just finished. But each time right? It actually does. And sometimes because of my randomness, how I did it, it does select typically. And I actually was going to play with this some more, but I decided, I'm going to leave this for now. Okay. So just keep in mind, if you wanted to do a form for this week, you totally could. It'd be really up to you. You'd be setting yourself up for next week. So next week, we're of course going to do the form. We have to do form validation. Multi-line forms or multi-item forms are a little more challenging, but really fun and interesting to know how to process. So we'll look at that next week. But if you want to just begin the process, here's what I would say. If you want to do a form because you're like, I don't know how Rio did this, that's fine. But I just want you to be able to handle multiple orders, do a running total. And if in your mind it makes more sense to do a form, it's really up to you. But I bet you can see from just my processing this one here what I probably did to have that happen. Okay. As normal, right? When you reply, make sure you're looking at somebody else's code. But again, make sure you don't look at that code until you've done your own, right? If you are submitting early, make sure that is gradable. And so I can actually grade it, which qualifies you for the no replies. But again, I definitely would tell you, do the replies because reading code is the best way to learn how to write better code. Okay, I hope this helps you, and I'll talk to you later.